this meeting of the Finance Cooperative Committee to order, December 11th. First item is to approve the agenda. Do we have any comments or things that need to be added to the agenda? Motion to approve the agenda.
I mean,
Second. All in favor? Yes.
aye.
Okay. The minutes are in the packet for our November 13th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Motion on the minutes.
A motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. All in
That's
favor?
you.
Oh, I second.
That's it. I don't think she
I
can.
don't think I can. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Rick, was there any written communication from the public
Not that you didn't receive.
that we were receiving? Okay, now we have public comment. There's a 15-minute time period for citizens to appear and express their views before the Decatur Public Library Board. A limit of 3 minutes per speaker, total of 15 minutes. No immediate response will be given by the library trustees or library staff members. Does any member of the public wish to speak?
Yes, I have a public comment.
And if you would use it, yes, use the podium, that would be great.
My name is Mark Earl. I came here at the last meeting, as I have many times, asking you to intervene on behalf of the FOIA program. You haven't. It's been 6 days. We have more lies, deceptions from Rick Meyer. He claimed there were no communications between himself and the mayor's office. The mayor disagreed, provided documents to prove it. Rick told right here in a meeting in front of everybody that he communicated about Bob Smith being a potential new member of the board. That's a lie. He also told you he authorized over $20,000 to pay for FOIA. FOIA request asking for that information said there were 0 relevant documents that track the cost of FOIA. Right? So one of those two has to be a lie, but then it became very clear when the legal invoice for September came in and there were clearly sections on there that were earmarked for FOIA. Those were documents that should have been turned over when we asked for the FOIA cost, but it didn't happen because Rick Meyer, again, is a liar and has no ethics, has no integrity. But then, he wouldn't even redact, and once again, would not properly unredact the items so that the public could see why he had authorized spending over $5,000 in 1 month on legal costs. Going by what I've heard in these finance committee meetings, the budget for the legal is not too much more than that for a year. So what is Rick Meyer doing with $5,000 in 1 month, and why isn't this finance committee worried about it? That's public money that's being spent with no overhead. The public has no idea what's going on with it. Looking at it, it looks to me like it's being used for non-library purposes to promote personal agendas from Rick Meyer or other members of management. I think the public deserves to know what each of those dollars is paying for, and of course we're not. Because again, Rick Meyer knows that what's in those documents can be used against the library in a court of law. Your own lawyer, Chris Sedula, sent in multiple emails telling the Attorney General, please, irrelevant of the law, do not release these documents to Mr. Girdler because they can be used against us in court. That's what this city citizens are paying $150 an hour for. But with Donna Williams as the president of the board, what do you expect? You're not going to get anything quality done here. I'm sorry, are you okay?
I think we're probably at 3 minutes.
Are you sure about that? Or do you think we are?
Pretty close. Anyway, if you could summarize, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry, is this your time or mine?
This is your 3 minutes, sir.
Then why are you speaking? No, I'm asking you, why did you interrupt me?
I didn't interrupt, I wrong.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to old business, parking lot update. Greg told us last time there are things planned for the spring. I hope is there, there's no additional information?
Well, I mean, looks almost done to me.
Yep.
I mean, all I know is, I don't know, lights have to be installed, where they installed?
I didn't check last night, but my understanding is they were supposed to come on last night.
And then when I go to the parking lot, it looked like the temporary lights had been.
Taken.
Yeah, Ronnie told me they would be active last night, and I didn't even notice, so.
Yes, we'll see in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, the only other thing I know is that they'll come back in the spring for some cleanup and
And planting.
planting and stuff like that.
I made a signage request. There's like 4 spaces right up where the loading dock used to be. 2 of them are handicap spaces, and the sign, there must have been a miscommunication. Somehow the sign said employees only, but we covered that up because we didn't want employee parking on there. So I requested a new sign saying 10-minute pickup drop-off, so somebody just has something on hold and they want to come in and get it, you know. So also we're considering, I know there's different ways of looking at this, but we're considering putting some signage up, some of the closer spots, making seniors, senior parking. My very unscientific survey of seniors that are really receptive to that, but it's not illegal, you know, but.
I think the last discussion we had on that was that it would be hard to enforce.
It would
right?
be
Because there's
almost
some
impossible to
people that can
enforce.
hang on your-
And so that has the potential of leading to, you know, other problems, but
Right.
Right. Well, it's very nice. Okay, well, thank you, Greg. In your packet is just an information item. I know Greg is working on a sort of big picture capital plan, just so, I just want to be clear. We understand that the capital part is the responsibility of the landlord. This is all just in the interest of our being informed participants in the process. So I know Greg's working on it, but I thought you all would be interested, and Rick provided. This is what the building commission did when they looked at it in 2014. So it gives you, you know, at least some of the line items that we're going to be thinking about and looking forward to hearing what the city has to say about it. And this is just FYI for everybody. You know, this building has a lot of systems, and doing anything is expensive. And of course, these numbers are all, you know, out of date because it was 6 years ago,
and some of them are checked off.
and some of them are checked out. So that's for your information. Thank you, Rick. Is there any other old business? Okay, we'll go on to new business. We'll start with the check register, and Rick, I see that this is coming right out of the system and is now organized by kind of category, which is nice. And then, of course, travel expenses, we have backup on that. It is printed on 2 sides, so we shouldn't look at those up there. I had a question about ICE work in our computer software line.
Yeah, that's our email program, licensure for a year, our web-based email.
So if we don't pay it, we don't have email?
Correct.
Well, that's important. Let's see, before we go to travel, in the databases section, or the per capita grant expenses, we've got World Book and A to Z database. Those are recurring, those are not new databases. They're
Correct.
recurring.
Correct.
And just while we're on that topic, any further ideas about promoting the use of the databases?
Well, they're up. I mean, it's one of the few bright spots. I mean, electronic circulation is up, and so is usage of databases. And we think that that's due in part to the new website. You know, we're getting a lot more page views than we had with the old one. We're getting more hits and more unique visitors, but it's the amount of time people are spending and the number of pages they're going to that's really, really up.
Wow.
So, we think it's doing its job. If you look at it on a device, it's so much easier to use. But the A to Z, the World Book one is A to Z World, A to Z Food America and A to Z World Food. So if you're a foodie, give those a visit. Today featured is in the U.S. In A to Z Food America is Indiana. So, and there's A to Z World Food. I found some awesome stuff in here, but A to Z Databases is the one that gets a lot of use. That's, top of my head, I think it's probably our most used database. And there's a lot of business and demographic information on there.
Okay. And then also on that page, EBSCO Industries, that's a big one.
Now EBSCO does a lot of things, but in this case, they're our magazine subscription broker. So they handle all of our magazine subscriptions.
And so rather than individual companies, you just put them
Correct.
in to take care of it.
Yeah, we get our list and we can make changes to it in a year, each year, but
Okay, we're in the middle of the next last page, Watts Copy System. I know we've had lots of discussions about office equipment and maintenance of office equipment.
yeah,
So
this is just catch-up billing, and our billing is just coming lumpier than it should. It was about a year ago that they first did this. They went to a third party to do the billing for them, and it's not the steady billing that we're used to. So some months we're getting very small, and some months we're getting larger. So it's the same amount annually.
It's just lumpy.
It's just right.
And you're still pleased with the service and they're giving you what you need?
Yeah, we need, I don't know who our contact is anymore. The guy who's been our contact for several years is no longer with the company, but, yeah, when we've had a problem, they sent the VP, Carol Watts, called me personally. I mean, they fixed the problem. They owned it and they fixed it, and you guys are with Watts too, aren't you? And they offered us, as I think I mentioned a couple months ago, they offered us if we renewed our contract a year early, lower cost and better equipment. So we went with that. That said, at the end of this contract, we'll see what's out there.
Right, I mean.
It has to be done every so
Yeah.
often.
You just have to keep an eye on it because it's so important. Okay, we're gonna have travel expenses in a bit. There is another Uber bill on this month. Right, I assume it's,
And they're usually a couple of months behind. So, that's probably September is what we paid for in November.
okay. All right, no, I didn't catch this one in the order, so.
Budget proposal, please.
Yeah, let's do the budget and then come back and approve the check register and the conference expenses, so we can make sure we pick up both those pieces. All right, so the budget, so the current, we'll start with the current operations, which is this report, which has the shading on it. And we're 92% of the year, so revenue is above that, payroll is below that, fees are right on track, professional services are slightly above, office supplies are, and service to equipment are above, as we've talked about many times this year. Are there particular lines you'd like to highlight, in particular what's happening? Do we know anything more about property taxes?
I haven't heard anything more. I would, when we give a projection like that, I would just count on not getting a check in December. I mean, that's the safe thing to do.
We'll find out next week.
Okay.
But I'm sure the answer will be that their plan is to distribute the last week of December, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, and we'll find out if we get it or not. So, but we don't know. So,
And, but the information we have right now, it appears that the collection is down, right? Is that the conclusion that you're coming?
yeah, I mean.
Or it's just all timing, is it?
It's really, it's hard to say, but I would suspect that it's a little bit of both.
I mean, at this point in the year, as compared to previous years, yeah, we are behind in the collection. That doesn't mean it won't,
Right,
at the third disbursement, make up for it.
right, well, and Greg is very well aware of how complicated that collection distribution process is. There could be a number of things going on. Okay, now then, let's look at, so we're almost to the end of the year, so that, now let's look at
The
this.
projection should be pretty accurate by now, except for we've got that one big variable. And that's, are we gonna get the disbursement in December, and how big is it gonna be? So I gave you a best case and a worst case. The best case is if we collect in December, if it gets us to the $2.842 million, it'll actually be $2.9, almost $3 million, because we've got the last disbursement from 2018 in 2019. The worst case scenario is if we don't get another property tax disbursement, we are actually going to be below our 2.8 million, which would end it up about 75,000 below budgeted revenue. And that's, keep in mind, there's a placeholder on the revenue too.
Right.
That 75,000 in grants isn't something that we expected we know we're going to get. It's hey, let's have this line in here in case we do get that, so that we can have someplace where to go. So,
And the state property replacement tax is,
100,000 above.
and you have that in your hands, right? That's not
Correct.
guessing, that's.
Well, we have almost all of it in our hands. So I'm projecting a fairly small disbursement in December.
Okay.
Well, I know we'll get a disbursement in December, and I know it's going to be one of our smaller ones. But we're at about, right now, I don't have the detail in front of me, but we're at about 343,000 right now. So, and I'm predicting that we'll end up at about 350,000.
What is state replacement tax?
Well, I can tell you what it is. I can't tell you where it comes from besides the state of Illinois. It's the state of Illinois used to have personal property tax.
Well, it still has personal property tax.
Okay, you're the better one to
Back
explain
in the
this.
1970s, I think maybe it was time when the state redid the Constitution. There was a tax that, part of personal property tax that businesses would pay was the inventories. Whatever the value of their inventory was a taxable item for personal property. And there was tax that was unusual to do. There were tax changes that were made, and that tax, the tax on inventory as a personal property was eliminated. But the state recognized that was going to be, in doing that, it would take revenue away from libraries and cities and other places. So they came up with a tax called personal property replacement tax. It's a tax calculated another way, and it's taxed on a variety of things. Businesses are effectively paying that tax. It's another tax other than income tax that businesses would pay to the state of Illinois, and that's distributed to.
And it's just randomly, I mean, it's
It's-
distributed by
it's-
population or something,
yeah,
but it's
per
collected as
capita
a pool
basis.
and then.
And then it's the other thing that I mean, this is getting a bit editorial, but the state has long used that as that's their grab bag. And that's where, in past, where they've had issues with state revenue, they'll just reach into that bag and they'll pull money out of there because the state constitution allows them to do that. And that reduces the distributions that are available for libraries and local governments and so on. So it's an extremely difficult tax to predict because you don't know what they're going to reach in and grab from the bag. But short hopefully short answer.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And the Illinois Department of Revenue has a not terrible website that has information on some of these, on the collection and disbursement.
Yeah.
The other point of why it's important to the library is whenever that tax change was made back in the 70s, or, yeah, it was the late 70s, that there was something connected to that at that particular time, the City of Decatur Library was receiving 22.X. The revenue that was lost from that tax being, inventory tax being removed, the library at that particular point in time was getting 22.X% of that revenue. So that was defined, you know, maybe the Champaign Library was getting 19%, or the Bloomington Library was getting 23%. But whatever those
Parameter.
portions were,
Yeah.
was kind of written into the law somehow, that whatever personal property tax revenue the city of Decatur collects in any period, 22.X% of it has to go to the library. So it's kind of it's a kind of a guaranteed funding thing, whatever we get, whether the city gets, the library gets, but that's why it's important to the library, because it's kind of a dedicated revenue stream.
I think I understand it better than I ever have now. Thank you, I appreciate that. That's,
Okay, so Rick, if we look at the big picture then, so it looks like all these line items, your best guess of the worst case, as we're sitting today, is it's gonna be 75,000 below budget. But we have a positive variance on expense items.
correct.
And my back of the envelope says that puts us about 206,000, 207,000.
$207,507
Okay, to the good.
to the good. That's our
Versus
first line.
budget.
Versus, well, no, not versus budget, that's in the black. Okay, we'll have,
It's not versus budget, because budget's over here.
right.
This is worst case scenario, this is budget.
No,
So-
I know, but what's
He's
the,
giving us the 207
So that-
is for
so-
worst case scenario.
so-
we're in the
what-
black.
what-
So so roughly 3.8 million in revenue, roughly 3.6 million in
right,
expenses.
but I was looking at the column called difference from budget, so the budget variance. So there's 75 for the bad for revenue.
Yeah, and I didn't do that for the expenses because it's the same as it is in the best case for expenses.
Okay, right, that's what I did.
Okay.
So I did versus budget
Got it.
on the back of the envelope.
This is the worst case scenario, we're in the black at this.
That's variance to budget.
Yeah,
No,
no,
that's actual.
that's actual, what we have right now, it's not variance to budget. I mean, variance to budget is actual.
It may turn out to be the same thing. Variance to budget, I've got about it.
You would have to add more money to that, so whatever.
No, two things are going on here at the same time.
We still do transfer to Kevin, or do transfer to Kevin?
It's actually, the actual number is 230 to the good. The variance to budget is 206 or 207. I'm reading if you look at this column, Rick, the most right column, it says difference from budget. So that is worst case versus budget in that column. And that gives you 207 versus budget, or 230 to the black. Those numbers are similar.
Maybe somehow,
Okay, well, we can go over it.
if we had budget, if you add what the budget was to that, it would be another 75,000 in the black if we get.
Well, this is going to be the actual number. This is variance to budget. They're both positive. They're both, they're in the same range.
If you go back to this the middle column, this is actually year-to-date,
Yes.
so that's through November,
Correct.
right? Okay, so go to the second page. So through November, the revenue minus expense in the middle column, $421,936.26. So through November, revenues exceed expenses by that amount of money. Okay, so that's a pretty good year. I mean, we got a surplus of $400,000.
If we don't get a final collection for property taxes, our revenues would probably be between $30,000 and $50,000 next month, and our expenses will be roughly $250,000. So it's
that
still
gets
gonna
you
be,
to
it's
200.
still gonna be 200-ish in the black.
At the
So,
end of the year.
so should the, so should we just go ahead and approve, let's say, moving like $200,000 to the capital fund? And we can do it, in December?
Yeah,
I would
that would
be,
be
I would
fantastic.
be
I
in
think
favor
that's
of
a good
that.
idea.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
so somebody's gotta, should we just say
I
we do that, or?
Want me to make a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to move 200,000 to the capital fund in December.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. Okay.
But let's say, even with that, you still expect that, you know, you'll end the year with still a surplus in the operating fund.
Yes.
And that could be, what, every way from this best case to worst case?
Right.
Yes, I mean, 200,000 for this year might cut it close, but it'll be, it should be okay, especially when you consider we had a,
Surplus
you know,
last-
everybody likes the term carryover,
Yeah.
but we had a surplus last year as well. I mean, our cash position, as compared to this time in past years, is very, very good. I mean, overall cash position is 1.8 million, our operating cash position is 1.5 roughly,
Yeah.
which is in a much better place than we used to be in.
Well, would you say that, let me just look, like, looking at this stuff, would you say that, that the primary reason that the library has this favorable position is, well, I mean, obviously, we're not spending money as fast as, money's not going out the door as fast as it's coming in the door. But when you look at this, in large part, it's in personnel expenses. So maybe just, a question is, why are we saving money in personnel expense? And secondarily, obviously, that's because we don't have staff. But you know, in normal case, there kind of comes a point, I mean, if you're able to operate without staff, okay, whoever that staff is, and you're not suffering any customer service lapses or you know, you're still delivering the services you're required to deliver, at some point in time, you gotta start talking about whether we do in fact need those positions or not. You know, maybe we can live with, if we're able to operate without them, then maybe we can live without them.
I've got, yeah, I get what you're driving at. I can tell you, we actually spent more on personnel this year. We actually added personnel this year.
Okay.
And yet we were in this position. We felt we needed to add for those very reasons, because of those very reasons you mentioned. We thought we had customer service issues that needed to be addressed. And this is no secret, I've talked to staff about it. I predict in the next 5 years that through attrition, we will at least have some jobs shifting, but we probably will lose a few jobs through attrition, not through layoffs. And because of some efficiencies we've added.
And reorganization.
And reorganization. So,
Realignment of these.
But let's say for 2020, did we budget for, in the 2020 budget, do we have the cost of those, you know, do we put the budget together as those empty positions that we have now are going to be filled next year?
well, we only have really one half-time empty position at this time. We had every intention to add another half-time position. 2020 didn't seem to be the year to do that. So we only have one half-time position that is open and it should be filled in, I would hope, no later than February.
But how are we saving $100,000 in salaries?
Turnover.
So let's say,
Turnover, and also, we add, those positions we added, it happened much later in the year than we wanted it to.
so are we like, somebody left that was paid a salary here, we replaced it with
Exactly.
somebody here?
Yes.
Okay. But when we budgeted for next year, did we budget for that salary up here, or did we budget for that salary down here?
We budgeted for where, we only have one position to fill, so we budgeted for the current plus their cost of living and or merit raises. But what's gonna happen is we're likely to get a few retirements in 2020 also, and it's about, some of it's about timing. maybe there's a formula to account for that and get a more accurate, per budget, but
We always budget
Yeah.
for the cost. of
that's how I've
personnel
been
you
doing
have
it.
now.
I budget for
Extend that.
a full staff, and again, we are only one half-time library assistant short of that right now. That's roughly $22,000. So it's not gonna add a whole lot. But what you guys don't see from this, you don't see the detail. I mean, you probably don't have the time to look at it. I get it from your office, but what you're seeing is each month, that personnel cost has been climbing a little bit.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
because we finally got everybody added.
Okay,
So.
all right.
Oh, that's great. Okay, we don't, I always ask this question, we don't approve this, this is information on it, we're gonna approve.
Yeah.
Okay.
You always can, I mean, there's nothing that says you can't
Right.
officially accept it, but
Yeah.
we haven't made a practice of it.
Okay, so now let's go back to the check register. We've got the documentation on travel expenses that come in this month. My understanding is that it includes trips, travel that we have talked about before. There's some timing issues, like Rebecca, Dan Pierce,
Thanks.
dance. The remainder of her expenses for the Fargo,
Correct.
North Dakota trip, Iowa, and
My registration for the Public Library Association Conference in February of 2020. My registration costs,
we have talked about.
which you guys approved, but it's now showing up on the. So the higher priced meal on here, you'll note that was 3 staff. That was the 5th page in.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, that was for 3 staff. And again, I apologize for getting this to you so late, but there was a lot of private information on here, and I wanted to make sure I went over it multiple times.
Okay, and so in the check register, these items appear both on this new format that we're looking at, appear both as conferences and travel when the payment is made as a reimbursement to an individual, or toward the end, in what's in kind of a miscellaneous category again, of the payment to the credit card, which is then broken out, telephone, conferences and travel, or support expenses. Appreciate you doing that. Are there any questions on the travel expenses?
They just, just in a given year. I mean, let's say yourself and different other staff attend state library meetings, national library meetings, whatever. Could you just, real quick, just a quick rundown of?
Sure. There are system meetings, and I don't attend all of them. Robert sometimes attends, I sometimes attend. We have members,
So it's by systems you mean
IHLS, Illinois Heartland Library System,
our consortium?
our consortium, and the sort of subgroup share. They have a board meeting every month. I typically don't attend those. If I do, I attend them
Do you always have 2 board members?
remotely. Well, that's the different thing. That's a
Oh,
that's a conference. So they also have a members matter meeting every year, and that's it's what it's turned into is a mini one-day conference. They have different classes and seminars, and then they have it's the annual meeting where they vote on some issues. I was not able to attend this year, but we did send 2 staff. And that was in Effingham. So then there are different Illinois Library Association meetings, the biggest one being the conference, the annual conference, which alternates between suburbs and downstate. So this year was in Tinley Park, next year will be in Springfield, which will be really nice. The year before was in Peoria, and that is a 3-day conference like any other association conference. You've got classes and you've also got, it's a trade show also. Then there's the American Library Conference every year. It is now going to alternate. Every other year is going to be in Chicago. This year was in Washington. 2 years ago was in Chicago. Next year will be in Chicago.
This is a national meeting.
That's the American Library Association Conference. I think it's 4 days, but unless you want to do a pre-conference, which I've never done, and that's another $300 or $400, and it's another day. But it's a symposium type thing. It focuses on one thing. It's on a variety of classes. Every other year, the Public Library Association Conference. So that's in the even years. So 2020, and it's usually in the late winter, early spring. 2020 is going to be in Nashville and at the end of February. And I will be attending that. I'm hoping to get 1 or 2 other staff members. For us, that's the big one. It's the ALA serves public libraries, but also academic libraries, school libraries, same with ILA. Special libraries, so in other words, a law library or a hospital, a medical center library. So, but the Public Library Association Conference is just geared toward us. So every conference is, or every session, every program is, at least in theory, relevant.
So it's, so let's say the state library meeting and this national meeting, they're the kind of typical association meetings, or where part of it is educational, like what's latest and greatest going on in libraries. It's CPU for
Yes.
So our library professional staff need to keep continuing education, and that this attending these conferences serves as giving them that, okay?
Yes.
To maintain their credentials and so on. And it's also like I think you said, a trade show where vendors showing and selling the latest and greatest technologies and whatever else are there presenting.
And it serves a third purpose. They serve a third purpose, and that is the associations themselves, the governing bodies of the associations have their annual meetings. So those are the.
So that's the typical meetings. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And then there are the board meetings. Again, the IHLS board meetings. When I attend in that room over there, remotely, for the most part. We're hoping to get some more staff at Reaching. Did anybody go to Reaching Forward South this year?
Not this year, last year.
Yeah. Okay. But you did send some support staff to something in Champaign. What was that?
We went to, it was Kellogg circulation.
Okay. Reaching Forward South is a conference for support staff. So not librarians, but support staff. So we're hoping to get some folks there this year. And actually, ILA is offering some scholarships. I just sent the division heads this information today, offering scholarships to get support staff at the ILA conference. So I'm hoping we'll get some nominations from the division heads to get 1 or 2 support staff members at that conference. It's a shot in the arm too, people, they come back, really excited about,
Bigger.
Well, you're not living in a bubble. The bubble of Decatur Library. You're out there learning what other people are doing and bringing in their ideas or sharing your ideas.
Correct.
Okay, so can I have a motion on the check register and associated backup?
Move to pass approve the check register.
To
recommend
To the board, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the check register to the full board.
A second.
Okay, and then we'll take
Aye.
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 Thank you very both John and Rick. I will not be available at the board meeting, I'll be out of town, and Greg has kindly agreed to make the finance committee report to the board.
Well, when would you have the minutes like this? Before the board meeting?
Before you walk into the meeting.
How about that?
Okay.
I'll try to get,
Okay.
I'll try to get through this.
All right, okay. Hey, could I ask a question?
Sure.
You know, other business? There was some conversation, some communication related to internships. Where'd that ever end up?
Right now, we think the best approach, and this is, we've had social worker and social work professor Mary Garrison doing pro bono work here at the library. So she's been providing a few hours a week. She's been coming, and anybody who wants, any of our patrons who want to talk to her, has some issues that she might be able to help with, she's providing them some either on-the-spot help or getting them referrals. She would like to see, and we agree, she pitched it to me, I think it's a great idea, an internship here from the U of I, working with the U of I School of Social Work. Nobody really liked the agreement the U of I sent us. So where I think we're going right now, Chris is much more comfortable with this, I'm more comfortable with this, is that the library would have an agreement with Mary Garrison, and Mary can have an agreement with the University of Illinois. Because that way Mary provides her own liability insurance through her private practice, and she takes that risk.
Okay.
And she's the supervisor of the intern. So we haven't seen that document yet. We'll get it, we'll bounce it back and forth until it's something everybody can live with.
Okay.
And I also, as I was looking through the programs available at Public Library Association conference about 3 hours ago, first day, one of them is how to do social work internships at your library by the Jacksonville, Illinois librarian. So I'm going to call her tomorrow and say, how did you guys, they're working with McMurray College, so I'm going to call her and say, how did you guys do it? And maybe we can use them as a model.
But is this something, well, I guess it sounds, I mean, first of all, it sounds like however this thing's gonna go, Chris is comfortable that setting up the way you suggested would shield the library from risk.
Yeah, well, we'd have to see the details first.
Yeah, of course, yeah, yeah,
But,
okay.
yeah, he didn't like the agreement, you didn't like the agreement, I didn't like the agreement, so.
Yeah, okay.
And you guys said, well, we're willing to compromise, and then finally it was just like, look, why don't we just make the agreement with Mary Garrison, and, you know, Mary likes that idea, we like it better, so we'll see what they come up, we'll see what they come up with.
I guess, the question I have is, I mean, is this a typical type of service that a library would offer
Yeah, it's a great
to
question.
its clientele?
Large cities are actually hiring social workers. I would not be in favor of that, not for our community. But the libraries in large cities are actually have social workers on staff.
Okay.
But what you're finding in medium-sized and smaller cities like us is that we're finding ways to get partnerships to provide that. We have a lot of folks who come here. This is a warm indoor cool place. It's a place where, you're not going to, how many places can you be inside all day without, buying something? So we attract a lot of folks who, especially folks who have issues with housing. But we get a lot of folks that have a lot of different problems. It hasn't been just that. I mean, I was surprised at the number of people that have availed themselves of Mary's services when she's been here. I would never, I won't say never, but I certainly not now, I don't see any need to even dream of hiring a social worker on staff. That's not where I want to go. But if we can,
Link existing
Yeah, yeah,
things
yeah.
better.
and we've got, I mean, there are folks that, that every morning, poor guy sleeps out here. you know? He's not harming anybody, but maybe we can get him some help, you know?
Yeah, I mean, just get kind of another subject, but, I mean, at least to that particular issue, I mean, what I understand is that, I mean, here in Decatur, there's no real need for someone to have to sleep, outside in the evening, because there are shelters that are free and open and
I
available.
can't speak to that. I can.
That's what I've been told.
I can't speak to that, but I can tell you as a former social worker in nearby
Yeah.
Springfield,
Yeah,
that the beds there were not enough beds. There were not enough beds.
yeah, I mean, this is in the last year or so,
And,
was
and
told that
maybe
there
different.
there
I-
are more than enough beds.
Again, I can't speak to an
Yeah.
indicator, but I know that in Springfield there weren't enough, and it was.
But like to this guy, I mean, is this something that your person has been in touch with this person? This somebody sleeping outside to maybe at least have a conversation to try to point them in the
Not
direction?
to my knowledge, but she certainly could be.
Yeah,
And that's it, we're not, because we're not, if you come to us and ask for information
Yeah.
about where can I go, that's what we're here for.
Yeah,
But we're not trained social workers,
yeah.
you know, and to have somebody that can do that, and if it's at no cost and no risk to the library, I don't see a downside to
So
it.
maybe just brokering the library brokering a conversation between a person that maybe needs some help and a social worker
Yes.
Right.
might be of some value.
And we've had some MOUs in the past with different social service agencies saying just that. We will, when we, that we will give them, not, I hesitate to use the word refer, because we're not referring anybody, but we'll provide that information about who in the community can help you. My wife used to, every year she developed basically a yellow pages for social service agencies in the community, and we always have that every year.
Well,
Here it's available.
and isn't there something in the first call or something like that too?
Yes.
But this is all providing an additional layer of kind of brokerage and personal contact rather than a
Exactly.
piece of paper.
Exactly. And what Mary has said that why it works here. In our sort of sum up meeting a few weeks ago, she said it's because of the relationships our staff develop with our patrons. And I guess it's like bartenders, you talk to your bartender, apparently you talk to your librarian too, and they don't share any of that stuff, but what they say is you may want Mary, Mary's gonna be in, you may wanna go talk to Mary. And so, our people are opening up to our staff members, and so they.
Well, I think if you're lonely and you don't have any place to go, and you're at the library, and you ask a question, and then you start talking, and, so you open up.
Right, again, it's
It's
a
a
place where
friendly environment.
it's a place where you can be and spend some time and there's nobody trying to sell you.
And to go back to the budget issue, I don't think we're paying these interns.
No.
The interns are being paid out of some university.
Correct, and so we were told by the university, since we're not giving them a stipend, they would provide the insurance for the
That makes
intern.
sense. That makes,
So is this, longer term? I mean, you said that maybe some larger cities are hiring social workers, and library staff. So is this something that, electricity first went to the big cities before it came to the prairies? Is this a similar thing?
That's why I say I hesitate to say never. I was about to say I would never recommend that for Decatur, but who knows? I don't see it as I would see that kind of as mission creep in some ways, but never say never. It's not something I see on the horizon for us, but.
Okay.
now this is a bigger issue in
Yeah.
Chicago.
I mean, Chicago Public has social workers, Boston Public has social workers, New York Public has social workers, and even, the boroughs, Brooklyn Public and Queens Public, they all have social workers. I don't see it being something that we put in our budget in any.
But I mean, this is an urban community, just
Yeah, it is.
smaller
Yeah.
than those.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're not immune to having those same issues,
You're not.
just,
Absolutely not. It's just
lower
about scale.
frequency.
You're absolutely right.
I guess on a different note, that is on a similar note, but I volunteer at one of the local schools that's staffing and I volunteer in a third grade classroom and those kids do not, they barely read at a first grade level. I mean, to me, I think it would be great if we could try and pull their parents and them in and,
Yeah.
but they need somebody to sit and read with them. I mean, that's when we can't have our librarian sitting and reading with them. Like, I would love to see some sort of, I don't know how we get them in
Well,
here
at
though.
the same.
But to me, those are
the
the
same
kids
same
that are
hour.
gonna end up,
Yeah.
you know,
They-
needing
This,
social
what's the school
services.
doing? I mean,
The school is very grateful to anybody that will come and volunteer.
so,
They
same
have
hour.
30 openings in the school.
Yeah.
There's 5 fifth graders in the third grade classroom.
so really, they don't have the resources to, I mean, because that issue is right in front of them on a daily basis.
Mhm.
But they don't have the resources, or they,
I think it's much more complicated than that. I think it's a complicated thing. You know, I look at, you know, my kids, I sat and read with them for years. My kids went to school knowing how to read.
Yeah.
I think it's just, you know,
Well, and you know, probably your kids grew up around books, and my kids grew up around books, but not every kid does or can, and that's why.
yes.
I mean, the
And
most
that to
important
me,
thing a
that's
public library
what I
does
would love
is get a book in
to
kids'
try and
hands.
figure out a way to get the kids early so they don't end up.
But it's interesting because, okay, that first hour of the first day of the Public Library Association conference in February, there's a class on social work internships. Same time, there's an early literacy, is connecting with your community through early literacy programs at the exact same time. I can't go to them both, but maybe we can get somebody else to go and,
I know, it's really.
Well, that is definitely something that I
Important.
have a lot of interest in and something that I'm just starting to work on.
We do still have our adult literacy classes here, right? Or,
Well,
we don't have-
it's
we
not
don't have-
ours.
We don't have, we provide,
Yeah.
Project Read.
yeah, Project Read
Which
is
is-
still going strong.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the relationship is between the library and that project.
Well, we consider ourselves partners.
Partners.
You know, we will make referrals to them, and they use our resources, and we allow them to use our meeting rooms free of charge for classes.
We are providing.
is Project Read, you know, to those third graders, is Project Read a resource?
Project Read is really for adults that don't know how to read.
It's for their
not-
parents.
It's for their parents.
But can Project Read be a, you know, expand its program and be a resource that maybe could be used for these third grade children or whatever, you know?
I was just thinking that it would be great if somehow we could pull them in here and just have volunteers, like older
Yeah.
people that would just sit and listen to them read. That's really what they need. They need somebody to sit and listen to them read and to correct them, and they just don't have a lot of, they don't have a lot.
Is that possible, Rick? I
But
mean,
it's-
Project Read expands its scope in some factor?
I can't speak for them. I mean,
They're their own
they are,
ones.
and they run on a shoestring. They're
They're very-
affiliated with Richland Community College, but
Specific mission.
she's got to go out there and hustle for grant funding every year just to make her
Keep the
budget.
doors open.
Yeah,
And then there's also Baby Talk, and at the other end.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
And we do have Baby Talk come in and do lap sits. And, you know, honestly, you know, a lot of times they're preaching to the choir. They're getting, in other words, they're getting the middle class and upper middle class folks, you know, in here with their families, which is important too, but, you know.
Well, I mean, that's important in the sense that as a young mother, I came to Baby Talk and I was very isolated and alone, and I had just moved to this community and I had young children, and it was nice. But I do remember coming to one Baby Talk here at the Decatur Public Library. I mostly went to Mount Zion, which Mount Zion Baby Talk was much more affluent, and it was more just the time, not the location or the patrons. But I remember coming to one of the Baby Talks here, and there were these two young girls. They were, I don't know, 19, 20. They had 6 kids between them, 6 dads. One of them was pregnant, and she said, "Are you reading to your kids?" And they said, "We're trying to read 15 minutes a week." And I'm thinking, oh boy. You know, and I just felt bad, but those are, they're struggling, and that's where it starts. And I was thinking, oh, I'm so happy this program exists so that they can come here, and I immediately
Oh, big, yeah,
made
big
a
time.
donation to them because they were dealing with that. But, I don't know, maybe there's a way, but the problem is Baby Talk only 0 to like 2 or 3.
This is- this
Whereas
would be-
these are kids that are.
This will be
older.
interesting. This is building community with an inclusive early literacy program. So it looks like it checks off. And then social work interns at small and medium-sized public libraries at the same time, so.
Unfortunately, those are both things that we need in our community.
So, you know, we'll, whoever else attends PLA will maybe coordinate.
Divided calendar.
Yeah, coordinate what we need to.
Well, and, you know, this is just, you know, this is such a tremendously important issue, you raise such an incredibly important point, which is important for everything. For school,
Future
For-
success.
economic development, for everything, so we won't, let's not let this slip off the list of things we really need to think about. There's some way to,
Interestingly, though, I mean, we go back to our strategic plan. So when we were developing our strategic plan, our consultants kept saying, what about early literacy? And what they kept hearing from the community was, don't change a thing in the children's department. Don't put anything in the
well, so,
strategic plan about.
And I will say,
Doesn't mean we can't do it.
I will say that I was one of those people that said, don't change a thing, but at the time, I wasn't exposed to some of the schools that actually need more help. And what I meant by don't change a thing is I love this department. I guess, in retrospect, I would have said, we need to add, but don't change what we have.
I'll be
Add
putting
this.
the strategic plan in front of you guys in January, February to review and see if we want to tweak it anyway, but.
Because you were talking about staffing and all this other stuff, I mean, maybe there's a way that we need to, and we have a school, Milliken, that has a teaching program, I mean, maybe there's a way to
True, that's very
have,
true.
you know, I don't know, reading help, writing help after school, or anytime you
Yeah.
think kids would show up.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know,
we-
Saturdays. And it may take years to build a program like that, it may be, you know, we have to get the word out.
And we think Ridiculous has an impact on that, because what we find, they go into a school and perform, we get, the next 2 days, we get people who have never been to the library before, parents saying, he said, I had to come, we had to come to the library, and we had to look for these books,
Well, then
and we had to.
maybe that is our doorway, maybe we need to send them into the public more. Like, maybe we need to
Yeah.
fund that program, if that program's working, if that program's getting people in the door, taking out books, kids, then maybe that's the program that we need to,
We also
we need to
felt
give
that,
them a little
we
more
also
money.
felt that for going fine free has an impact too, because that was a barrier for kids that was completely crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, trust me, you know how many friends of mine used to take books out on my card because they owed fines,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't let those
So
books out of my
That's
sight.
against our policy.
No, I know, but they wouldn't leave my house. Their kids would take the books out, and they had to come to my house because I didn't trust any of them.
but, you know, so we check that off the list. So
So then now what's the next step?
what's the next step? And it's, you know.
But I think this will all fall out of the strategy, review and the refocus.
But I do, if Ridiculous is actually bringing people into the library, we need to look, and I've seen Ridiculous, my kids loved it when they were little, so I found it amusing, I sat through it multiple times, I was not like, I am glad to be here again. It was
Right,
adorable,
right.
the kids had so much fun, the smiles on their faces were amazing. So maybe that's our,
Entree.
like, we need
Yeah.
to push that program.
You know, is that, I mean, the program, the two,
Librarians.
yeah, librarians that are the program. I mean, they're good for another 10,
Oh, yeah.
15 years to doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Or, I mean, do we have to
And
start
trust me,
thinking
I
about?
once made the
about
mistake, of saying, now, are you guys thinking about succession? And
Yeah.
then they're like,
They got insulted.
so I am not bringing that up again.
Right.
They are very good, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I will say, and, you know, my kids didn't need it as much as other kids do.
That probably would be the best approach is, you know, use that as the magnet that draws, you know, these third graders, you know, your third graders in or something like that. Maybe we should fund, as you say, give them more money to get out into
They
the
do a
community.
lot, I mean, they do a lot, I mean, they're, and If they don't hit all the schools every year, it's pretty close. And,
But maybe they need to be hitting the
Maybe
schools
schools
more
more
often.
often.
Maybe, you know, once a week they need to be at a school.
Of course, the school has to be willing to have them
I
there.
think they usually are
Right.
pretty well.
I think they're pretty willing.
Yeah.
So maybe there's more discussion there, more discussion with Milliken about possibilities with the education.
Yeah, if only we knew somebody in the education department.
Yes,
And
really.
it would be helpful, especially somebody who does
So
reading.
Dr. O, is it?
I know.
Okay, well, that was really interesting discussion. Thank you. A motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to